Shamangelic Healing podcast is designed as a platform to share authentic conversations about real life issues, providing you with valuable resources and tools to support you in shining your most authentic self, creating a thriving life that you absolutely love, and to support you in manifesting your soul's mission. Greetings and welcome to the Shamangelic Healing Podcast. This is Anahata Ananda, and I'm coming to you from Vancouver, Canada. So excited to bring Kylie McBeath, who is the visionary behind Zura Health and the Zura Health podcast, and she's really an advocate for self-empowerment. You are going to love her message and all about her. She's got so many pearls to share with us about dissolving codependent patterns in all types of relationships. This goes deep with lots of pearls that you can apply, so check it out. She also has a wonderful free gift, so always check the show notes because I'm going to give you a free gift. So is she. And all of her socials and everything are going to be listed there. So be sure to subscribe to the episode, check the show notes, like it and share it, and let other people know about it for sure. A reminder that the Empowerment and Awakening Weekend in Sedona is coming up October 3rd through the 6th. You're going to want to sign up for that. We're going to give you $150 off for just this week only if you register now. Plus you can bring a friend. And Sedona is amazing in October. And that 3.5 days, we dive deep into empowerment and awakening strategies, conscious relationships, clear boundaries, all about the chakras, spiritual connection, how to, leverage divine guidance, manifestation strategies, vibrant health, productivity. It's packed with all kinds of tools to really help you level up. So check the notes to get that discount. And a special shout out to Sarva Superfoods. I want to share this with you because this is what I use, and people always ask me. For 2 decades, I've just been really into superfoods and superfood smoothies, and I really dig this company because it's super clean, it's affordable, and high-end products. This goes in my smoothie every morning. I'm all about the greens, Gaia greens. This blend is phenomenal. It's got all kinds of amazing stuff in it, so check that out. And it tastes good too. It's not all funky flavor. Then sometimes I'll put that with pacha protein. I like a clean protein that's easy to digest. This one tastes good. It's kind of like a vanilla nutty, and it doesn't have any fillers or any of that crap. I'm like really picky about what I put in my body, and everybody asks me. So this is what I use, and I just wanted to share it. And I'm going to give you a discount too. Cacao Plus, there's a couple different cacao powders that they have. This one's my favorite. And every day I'm really digging the Golden Bliss. And look, it's got like the seed of life on top of death. It's definitely super conscious and amazingly clean. The Golden Bliss is great if you want to have a golden milk at night before you go to bed. It's wonderful to put in to help with anti-inflammation and vitality. So I highly recommend this brand and this company. So go check out sarvasuperfood.com. So SARVAA superfood.com. And if you use the discount code Anahata20, ANAHATA 20, you're going to get 20% off your order. So they have adrenal formulas and female formulas and a lot more than just what I brought here, but this is what I travel with. It's because it's lightweight, super tasty, and I'm going to leave it here with Kai. So go check out Sarva Superfood, and let's go explore this amazing conversation about how we can improve our relationship health and dissolve codependencies and bring more vitality and sovereignty into our relationship. So let's dive in. Welcome to the Shamangelic Healing Podcast, special location here on the Be the Love Sanctuary location in Vancouver, Canada. Go Canada! With my dear soul sister from many years, Kylie McBeath, and I am so excited to dive into codependency and how to release that from creating so much chaos in all of our relationships. And I'm so excited to be here. And first of all, big fan of everything that you're doing. And, we've known each other for almost 5 or 6 years now. Yeah. And we met in Sedona. And it was just like love at first sight. I'm just like, oh, soul sister. And so I'm so grateful you've come to retreats, you've come with me to Peru, and it's so good to be here.
I'm truly honored, Anahata, to be here with your audience, with you in Vancouver, Canada. The first day I met Anahata was a day where, you know those moments in your life where you just look at somebody and have this full body resonance. Yeah. Like, I know her, or this right here, this is happening, and this is a forever.
Yeah.
And our journey over the last 5 years has been one of the most nourishing, supportive, healing, and incredibly rich relationships that I have on this planet. So I'm incredibly grateful. I've learned so much from you and continue to do so. So very excited to see where this goes.
Yeah, and I feel absolutely the same. And I think that there's something really valuable about relationships that you find where you can just be transparent, where you can be a mess, you can be honest, you can be seen, supported, and loved. And that's, that's where we're depending on each other in a non-codependent way, but in a healthy way, in a supportive way. And so what we're going to dive in today is how to identify the unhealthy aspects of codependency. And we're going to be talking about all kinds of relationships. We're going to dive into different dynamics. This isn't just intimate relationships, but also family dynamics and sibling dynamics and professional, and how much codependency can really sabotage a healthy dynamic. And you and I both have swam in the deep waters.
I know codependency well,
right? So audience, strap in. You are ready for a ride, because we get to laugh at where we thought it was healthy, or where we were in the blaming seat and in the victim place, and in denial about how deep-rooted and how ugly codependency can be, and how many different forms of it. Yeah. So, yes, you have two masters here. So tell me a little bit from your experience about what do you think, what are the signs of codependency in any kind of relationship? What do you think, like, red flag, this is probably a codependent dynamic?
Yeah, so first I'd like to lay the foundation of how I'm defining codependency in this conversation. So codependency for me is chronic self-neglect. So it is looking outside of ourselves for something to fill a void, or for external validation, or for connection in a way that keeps us further away from our truth, further away from our center, further away from our alignment. And how that shows up in one relationship is probably indicative of how it shows up in so many other relationships. So some of the signs that you'll find in intimate relationships, or even relationships with family and or siblings or your friends, is this fear of abandonment or rejection. So we withhold our truth. We play small. And how that might show up from a physical perspective in the body is we feel tired, apathetic, like there's almost an energetic leakage that is happening when we're in these dynamics, when we're out of alignment with our truth and utilizing some external thing or person to recharge or to hook in.
Well, and it's exhausting because you can't control the person. Right. You can't control whether they show up. You can't control whether they meet your needs. You can't control how they see you, and so it's a whole nother level of exhaustion that happens, because if I need you to act a certain way or be a certain way, and I can't really control that, now here comes the energy to try to control and manipulate through guilt, through shame, through drama, passive aggressive, like there's all kinds of ways in which to try to get you to do what I want you to do.
Oh, absolutely. We become so creative when we do this. We really do. It's like, okay, so I'm too afraid to overtly ask for this need because maybe I've pushed that possibility into my shadow because maybe it wasn't respected or honored in an earlier childhood dynamic or in the family system or wherever in your timeline. So we learn to shut those parts down. Yeah. And so we have to find these creative manipulative ways in order to get those needs met. However, like you said, you can't control people. So it just becomes more of this kind of toxic game that we play, which really just keeps us further and further away from our truth.
Right.
And it's just a distraction. It's a drama. It's something we just continually distract ourselves with. It's like, it's almost addiction. It's like adrenaline, cortisol. We're in it, and here's the drama, and then we pull back out because we need some separateness, and then we get that itch again where it's like, oh, I'm gonna try to hook back in.
Well, and it sounds like you said a chronic
self-neglect.
Self-neglect. So let's look at that, because if self-neglect is really the cause, let's look at the aspects of kind of self-neglect and what that looks like. And it sounds like neglect sounds like I'm not taking care of myself, or I'm not honoring myself, and expecting mother, partner, colleague, friends to take care of that which I'm not taking care of.
Yeah, it's looking for everybody else to show up in these ways, to nurture certain parts of ourselves that we don't necessarily have the skills, or haven't been given the skills to do so for ourselves. Plus, growing up is effing terrifying, because it requires that we take self-responsibility. It is so much easier to stay in victim and blame and shame, because then at least we can control that environment. But climbing out of that and taking responsibility requires a really honest self-check-in.
Yeah.
And
it's nice when somebody else takes care of us all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and so we can kind of
comfortable and
safe.
like,
oh, okay, you pay for everything, or you make decisions for me. And it's kind of like that child-parent dynamic where it's like, you know, we don't have that power, or we don't have that ability or maturity to make decisions for ourselves. And if we don't individuate from parents, and learn how to take care of ourselves financially, honor our emotional body, and really honor our true self, then we're going to be in a lifetime as a grown adult seeking validation, seeking guidance, seeking happiness, emotional stability from a situation and the people in our life. Which is a very precarious place to be in. I don't know, I've spent lots of time in that place before.
I mean, the first 25 years of my life, I was in just a serial dater, and just like jumping from relationship to next relationship without giving any space in between to actually check in with, who am I? What do I want? What is my purpose for being here? One, because those questions were never asked in a way that I probably even knew how to integrate or even reflect on in those moments, because I was just like, wait a second, I don't even know if I'm capable of standing on my own 2 feet as an adult. So I need somebody else in order to do this, because it didn't feel safe.
So is that we need to be guided through that process of individuation, like as kids, for parents out there, or for people that are saying, how can we stop this codependent pattern from happening younger? How would that have helped prepare you a little bit better for adulthood, to know, so that we know who we are going into adulthood, and we're actually having a sense of self before we go into marriage or dating, and that we know how to take care of ourselves, and we're not going from being a child in a house to then being into another, depending on somebody else again and again and again, and the pattern repeats, and we're well into our adulthood not really knowing how to take care of ourselves.
I think a really great place to start, and for me personally, this is where I had to start, was emotional intimacy. I had to reconnect with my emotional body. I didn't have a language or an emotional framework to actually bring what was happening in my body into my mind, because I didn't have the words. And if we don't have the words, it's very hard to name something. So without that emotional awareness, it becomes very challenging to even be connected to your truth. Because
if that's the case for a young woman, imagine how hard that is for men that are programmed, don't feel, don't cry, don't talk about it, and how deep we aren't really raised with the process of emotional inquiry. And so what I'm hearing is right? So that's the first step, is to learn how to navigate and inquire and hold space for your disappointments, your challenges, your emotional body. And I've noticed that with myself, and also with a lot of my clients, is when these emotional tsunamis happen, and we're human, we're going to go through emotional waves. So we're going to go through sadness.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Right? Like, others. Others than Kylie.
Yeah.
Right?
What are emotions?
Yeah. And just to instead of stuff those, to actually learn how to honor those waves. Because I realized that when my emotional waves would happen and I didn't know how to navigate those, like the people in my proximity, whether that was siblings, family, partner, husband, whoever, friends, they were on the receiving end of some pretty intense emotions because I didn't know how to manage those. Yeah. And a lot of times when we're drowning in our own emotions, we don't know how to deal with it. It's like, oh, well, if you love me, you'll calm my waters for me. Yeah. You'll make it okay. Like when I've had chaos. And it doesn't mean we aren't here to support each other and show up when we've had, when we're going through difficult times, but we also, to have healthy individuality is to learn how to navigate our emotions a little bit more so that we're not imposing those into our relationships and expecting our partner to have emotional mastery, which is also highly unlikely if we've all been not trained for this. To expect, well, if you love me, you'll do this for me. You're like, yeah, but if I don't know how to do it and you don't know how to do it and we're both drowning, then I can blame you for not loving me. And
that's so easy because we have nothing, one, that's the fastest way to get rid of your power, is to blame and shame and make it about everybody else. So that first step is self-responsibility. But when in the parent-child dynamic, modeling this healthy relationship to emotions and being able to co-regulate our nervous systems from parent-child is incredibly supportive of creating an internal foundation of safety around emotions. Right. And that's imperative for all humans on this planet to be able to climb out of any type of toxic dynamic. We need to be really connected and have the emotional framework and language to name our internal experience. Right. Because so many of us are living here up, relying heavily on logic, relying heavily on just the narratives and all of these different behavioral patterns that we learned in early childhood because we really weren't given the tools.
Yeah. And it's okay. It's not about blame at this point.
Like, it wasn't your fault, but it is now your responsibility. Like,
it's optional.
It is optional, of course. Stay in the pain. It's fine.
And you wouldn't be listening or watching if there wasn't, especially if codependency, if there's an inclination that I might be in this dynamic in some way. And so this is the invitation to be that accountable of saying, okay, even though maybe it wasn't modeled for me, I didn't know how to honor my emotions, and maybe at times when we had like emotional upside down, it wasn't safe to do that before, so we went in this place of avoidance around emotions. Or if we were raised in an environment where there's a lot of chaos, we've learned to emotions are bad, hide from them. Yeah. And so we get to inch forward and get super gently curious about our own, and also learn how to hold space for somebody else's emotions without getting pulled into their drama or trying to fix it or be overwhelmed by their intensity, because that's really easy to talk about codependency, to get sucked in to be the rescuer of somebody else's reality. You don't have the power to make the choices to change their dynamic anyway.
Right, and it's also too in codependency, you have zero boundaries. It's very enmeshed. It's where your emotional state is reflective of my emotional state, right? So that's why we get so uncomfortable, because there's not enough individuation, separateness, that I'm actually taking on your emotional experience. Wow. And then I'm trying to change and are you okay? Are you okay? And it's like, oh my gosh, we need to create some distance here, because we are so enmeshed and there is not enough separateness to actually probably even manage and move through that emotional experience to complete that cycle.
So what it sounds like, when you say distance, and I see your hand doing like this, hey, back up. I want to acknowledge that one of the ways in which I see it in my mind's eye is that I'm having emotional distance from your second chakra, which is your emotional body and your inner child. Not distances that I'm uncaring, it's just that I want to give space for your tantrum without I want to give space, and I also don't want to get pulled into it. But at the same time, I think it's really valuable that as we create space to honor somebody else's emotional thing, or the chaos or a pain that's happening, that we're still able to move forward with a compassionate heart. So this part is like, hey, back up, because it's not, I can't hold this.
Yeah.
I don't want to be stung by it. And I also want to bring my heart forward to be able to hold space for the part of you that is overwhelmed, the part of you that is frustrated and throwing a tantrum, and also create space from saying, and I'm not actually the person that can solve it for you. Only you can solve it for you.
Yeah.
So I think there's a part of
there's a
codependency or moving out of codependency is learning how to honor somebody's space without taking on their problem.
Yeah, it's not your responsibility.
Which doesn't mean I don't care.
Right, no, that's right, exactly. But that's where it gets a little twisted in our cultural narratives of like, if you're not constantly trying to take on somebody else's emotional well-being, it can be seen as that you're selfish or you don't care. And it's like, no, I actually do care about you, and I'm not going to enable this dynamic that keeps us both stuck in this pattern where it's like, this is your stuff, this is my stuff. So it's like this invitation to stay in your own lane and then get curious. What do you need from me? How are you, like, it's just such an upgrade in our communication patterns, but also in our connection to self. Like, check in, is this mine?
Or is it triggering an old wound? Is there emotion or their trauma triggering my wound right now? Because now we're triggering each other, and then we can get into this pattern, like a downward spiral. So it goes fast, doesn't it? Tell me, like, what did that look like when you were in this place of your like most deep codependent patterns? What was the inner dialogue? What pattern kept repeating? If you could identify that for us, so that listeners and watchers can be like, am I doing that? Am I experiencing that? What does it look like in a relationship?
Extreme external focus on somebody else's everything. Literally every move. It was trying to pinpoint what the problem was, so that I could solve the so that I could find a solution for the disconnect I was feeling within myself.
Which had nothing to do with them?
No.
But the disconnect was just solely yours.
The disconnect was, I mean, there's probably a lot of layers to that, but that disconnect had started so much longer than so much further before the relationship even begun. So I think that's important. I was choosing from this place of, I need you, I can't survive without you, I'm not capable. And so it came from this lack of unworthiness, lack of self-worth, lack of any potential to stand on my own 2 feet as an adult. So it was almost very much like a child making that decision, that relationship decision, based off of previous wounding. So once entering into that relationship and then getting married, where now you're like in this commitment, I started waking up to the realization that I was not where I was supposed to be. And don't get me wrong, I didn't start there. That wasn't the internal dialogue when I first started. It was like, you are the problem. To my
projection.
To my previous husband, it was like, your events and everything you're doing, like, that's the problem. That's why I'm not happy.
I think that that's a really important piece. That it's somebody else's responsibility to make you happy. And I would say to that, bullshit.
Total lie.
Right? And I think that that's a big one. And we think, it's your responsibility to make me happy. It's your responsibility to make me feel safe. It's your responsibility to take care of me. And
that's a child.
Those are all my responsibilities. That's a child. Those are
child needs.
Those are child needs.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that our adult choices can't individually say, I need me to keep me safe. I need me to keep me happy. I need me to validate, honor, and love myself. Like, that's the primary disconnect between a child saying, gimme, 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 and an adult saying, I can provide this for myself. And I think that there's a trap there sometimes when we overcompensate and is like, I don't need anybody, and I don't need anything. And we both have done this before, where it's like, gimme, 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 and then it's like, I'm fine.
Well, you get so hurt, right, in that chronic self-betrayal, where you finally wake up to the realization that you've been disconnected from your true self, from
Ever.
Yeah, that you're like, I don't ever want to enter into a dynamic where I have the potential to let go of that again. So in that early stage of after healing from something like a divorce, a breakup, whatever, rock bottom moment in your life, you have to really create some strong boundaries around that, just so that you can center back in with yourself, so that you can reparent all of these parts of yourself that need more love, nurturing, permission to really name what it is that you want, your desires, because
maybe for the first time even.
Literally.
Like, especially with serial monogamy, which is like dating without, and a lot of times we start dating when we're in our teens and go from partner to partner, without breaks in between. You're like, wow, I moved into that relationship when I was 16 or 18 or 22, and it lasted for this long, and realizing I actually haven't had a sense of self ever outside of being a daughter or a son or this person's partner. And so I think that there's an invitation there to, after a breakup, pause. It's not like, all right, let's get Tinder out. Let's get hop onto dating sites and quench this pain with another, heart experience. Like, I just need to choose a better person because it's their problem. You're going to take all of those problems with you into the next relationship, different haircut.
Yeah, patterns repeat. If you don't do the work to hit that pause button after a breakup, to really examine your relationship blueprint, how did I get here? Like, what do I need to learn from this relationship? Then you're not really honoring that relationship, I believe. Right. Like, let that be the invitation to go back in and to really assess why that was showing up in your life, because I believe that all of our relationships are our greatest teachers on the planet.
100%.
And when you actually take that space to connect with yourself and to go back through that timeline, then you can integrate and really mine it for all of its wisdom and teachings that it has, because there's a lot of them. It also takes a lot of courage to hit the pause button on a pattern you've been operating within for forever.
Well, and it feels better to just be like, wow, I think I'll just go dive into somebody loving on me, and the attention and the validate, like, that might feel a little bit better at times than, no, I'm going to say no to that. I'm going to have a clear boundary there and just say, this is my time to like heal and get curious, even if you chose the transition from a relationship, or if it was chosen for you, to be like, what am I learning so that I am more mature, more wise when I go into the next relationship, so that I'm more whole? That doesn't mean we're not still constantly learning in relationship,
right? But
that there is a value. I appreciate what you're saying about integrating the lessons, the blessings, the gifts that can come from the last relationship. I'm still mining things from relationships from decades ago, and I'm like, wow, I did that then, and I can see how that, and even patterns that are still repeating in relationship.
Yeah, and I think that's important to give ourselves so much grace here.
Yeah.
It's because we do have blind spots. We're going to get back into a relationship even after taking that pause, after that break, and we are still going to find parts of ourselves that want to latch in into those codependent patterns, and that's okay. But at least when you do the work to give yourself that space, that time to acknowledge, name, and reconnect with these parts, then you can see them from much further out into the distance, and it'd be like, okay,
see it coming.
I see it coming, but I also am starting to realize what emotions indicate disconnection from self, or that self-betrayal.
So we can identify the red flags. When we go back and take that time, we can be like, here's the moment when I chose other over self.
Yep.
Here's the moment when I threw myself into the bus.
And why?
Exactly, and why. What was my motivation, or what was my unconscious belief that is being invited to evolve at this point?
Yes.
And so I find that's really essential to be like, where did I lose my identity? What red flag did I ignore?
Yeah.
What pattern keeps repeating? Oh, they keep leaving me. Or, I'm not safe. Everybody abandons me. And it's just like, okay, well, let's look deeper at that.
Yeah.
Because the answer isn't, well, I should just not date.
Right.
It's like discernment, integrity, self-respect, self-care. And I know for me personally, lots of times in the excitement of a new relationship made it more important to take care of the other person and to have together time and completely just dissolved all personal time. Like I stopped, taking care of myself and just like, but it feels so good when we're together and I want to make you happy. And like, I got really stuck in that pattern of taking care of everybody else and the relationship, the other and the two, and that I wasn't asking, what do I need? How am I doing? Am I taking care of my health? Am I honoring my dreams? And then there's this resentment that builds over time, or at least I experienced that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That, well, because they aren't giving me the downtime and I'm not taking it, so it's, I'm resentful, like, well, you take downtime for yourself. And it's like, yeah, but I didn't do it for me.
Right.
And I was envious and bitter and bitchy.
Yeah, those are signs that you're losing yourself. All of those, right? You're dropping back into these other compensatory strategies that you feel that you have to do in order to be loved and to be safe. And so it does come from a good place. Like the intention, I believe, underneath, although doesn't necessarily always show up to be the most beneficial, is coming from I want to be connected, I want to be safe. So it's almost that we learn these behaviors in early childhood. I call them compensatory strategies. And it's like people pleasing, the caretaking, the high achiever, like the comedian, like all of these different ways that we compensate for this lack of unworthiness.
Yeah.
And so it's looking at, where am I prioritizing everybody else's needs or expectations or obligations over myself?
Right.
Because that's a really great question to get radically honest with yourself about.
Right.
It's like
over and over and over again. And if you're in that, any part of self that is not whole, I'm going to be in a codependent relationship because I'm going to be looking for partner, parents, friends, work to validate that part of me that I'm not validating for myself. And I know that I got stuck in that codependent relationship with work validating my value. That, when I work really hard and my little A personality is getting rewarded and I get a bonus and I get acknowledged, like, okay, now I'm attached to that. That doesn't mean we can't succeed and choose to excel, but it was like very ego driven to, I need to feel good about myself and this makes me feel that.
Yeah.
And when I came home to be full-time mother, without that external validation, and I'm like putting in overtime that I used to get paid for, I used to get acknowledged for. Everybody's like, oh, you get a bonus, you're the best. And I'm like, hey, I just got thrown up on spit at shat all over and I haven't slept in, 2 years. Where's my bonus? Who's acknowledging this? And I was a really radical, self-validation time of knowing that nobody needs to see this, nobody needs to validate this because I'm doing ethically what's right to be a good mom. But I did have to, I was realizing that there was a big shift in codependency with external validation from, peers. And nobody was saying, I'm like solo doing this. My husband at the time was working, so nobody was able to witness my bravo deeds. I mean, they show up in wonderful kids down the line, but I was like, my ego wants a gold star and like a bonus.
The acknowledgement, the appreciation, which is, valid.
And so that's another form of codependency when you're identified by your career and the accolades of your career. It's a slippery slope, so I want to acknowledge that part of codependency as well.
Yeah, I think it's an important one to examine in our lives is where are we in our certain roles, and what are we getting from those certain roles, and is that serving us fully? And that is definitely a line that all of us have to examine at certain times in our lives, and usually burnout is a pretty good indication of where things are probably being driven from. I need to prove myself in order to feel worthy.
And the accommodator of burnout. Oh, I'm taking care of everybody at the expense of self, but then nobody's taking care of me.
Yeah, right. That's the dream or desire is, since I've been meeting all these people's needs, at one point then they'll meet my needs. And it's like, well, that's not how it works. You have to start naming those needs for yourself and then bring those forward.
And also take the time for it and have clearer boundaries to say, just because you have a need doesn't mean it's more important than my need.
Yeah.
And sit with where the guilt and shame would keep me from doing that.
Yeah, that's it. Those are big ones to move through.
Yeah.
Especially as you start to shift the relationship dynamics with your friends, with your partner, with your parents. Like when you start to individuate, you are renegotiating the way you operate within every system, friend system, relationship system in your life. It's a huge deal because it's going to rock the foundation a little bit, which then sometimes guilt is used, whether that's internal or external. Shame. And that's that invitation to go within and start to move through those emotions so that you can stay committed to what you know is in your highest and best interest.
And it takes an incredible amount of courage to face the judgment from mother or father that says, no, you can't do that, you can't individuate, or that's not smart, and like face that courage that comes up where if it's a friend group and you're moving, you're shifting the status quo and you're moving outside of the friend group or outside of this addiction pattern.
Yeah.
This is my drinking group, or this is my college group, or just a limiting belief that says, I'm going to break the pattern here.
Yep.
Well, if you're doing that, you're breaking a codependency of staying small, of gossiping or not growing. Then of course, those in that dynamic with you are going to be threatened.
Absolutely.
And so you get to be ready every time you individuate and shift out of a codependent pattern. You get to be ready for the backlash of the system, whatever it is, whether it's an addiction, whether it's a friend group, whether it's a partner that says, I'm moving forward.
Yeah.
Or you're individuating from your parents' wishes for you, or a financial codependency that says, wait, who am I if you're not depending on me? Who am I if you leave this friend group, if you leave this relationship, then their codependencies get really brought to the forefront. And when you want to hold on to those, that's going to elicit some emotional responses. So when you have individuated, like when you chose divorce, let's say, it's like like when you was witnessing, okay, I'm in a codependent dynamic, or this isn't healthy, and you started individuating. What was coming up? What did you have to face?
Originally in that process, I was in denial. I was like coming face to face with the realization that you're not in alignment, or that everything in your life needs to shift is
Yay!
is incredibly confronting. It's like, no, let's not. But it got to that point, where the universe, source, whatever you want to call it, cosmic 2x4 was like, yo, you're not listening, and I'm giving you no other option. And so for me, after choosing divorce to move forward with that, what was coming up for me was immense panic. I was terrified of individuating because I hadn't done it. And so this little child in me who literally was terrified.
And how old were you at that time?
At divorce? 25.
25.
So I was 25 when I was going through my divorce, and just a lot of self-doubt, a lot of fear coming up for me of, am I capable? Am I capable? That was like a huge one for me. I'm not sure why. I'm still probably integrating why that belief was so strong of my inability to be an adult, to
take care of yourself,
to take care of myself in so many different ways. So I made a commitment after my divorce, and I was so clear on this one thing, that if I don't do this work right now, I will never be happy. I will never get out of this pain. And so that commitment kept me in it for probably a year. And so every single day I met
you at that time.
Full permission to feel. Full permission to seek the support I needed in order to move through layers upon layers of emotional repression and just disconnection from self, and all the things that came with that, so that I could find an understanding and a foundation that was built in integrity and awareness and self-respect, so that I could move forward in my life and feel confident and trustworthy in my ability to be in another relationship.
Then you get to practice. Okay, am I going to go back to the old pattern? Then the next relationship after time becomes classroom again of, okay, here's the test. Are you going to throw yourself under the bus again? Are you going to individuate? Are you going to honor self? Like, it's not like, oh, now I'm awake and I'm aware every day in relationship or not in relationship. We get to practice this over and over again.
We sure do.
We sure do. I want to acknowledge something in that when you said at 25, I'm having the courage to do this on my own, and like, can I do this? And facing that fear, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of people stay, is they're afraid to be alone.
Yep.
Because who am I outside of this relationship? Or they're afraid to be on their own, of like, I'm not going to fail. There's like a lot of debilitating beliefs that have the opportunity to be met, moved through, evolved, so that you can not stay in an unhealthy pattern. Because I think a lot of people stay in those codependent places because of those very fears that you're talking about. Of like, well, I'm going to be a divorced woman at 25, or like, what will my parents think? What will the church think? What will my friends think? How is that going to change? I'm not going to have this house. I'm not going to have this stuff. And like all of that was up when I went through my marital liberation. And I was just like, wow, it did change a lot of things, but it also liberated some energy that was stuck in unhealthy, eating patterns, blame patterns, unhealthy things that it was hurting myself and my partner at the time. And
I wouldn't change it for the world.
Wouldn't change it for the world. And so for those listening and watching that are feeling stuck in a pattern, I know we're saying that it is challenging, but on the other side, there's so much liberation, because then you can be in an empowered place and not always feel out of control, defined by other people's behavior.
For me, a big part of that liberation actually came through. So after my marital liberation, I love that. When the first time you said that to me, I was like, yes, that's exactly what it was. I was like, yeah, that's so much better than all of the other names and labels we put on that. But it was the dissolution of my identity. And or my personality, because I was a perfectionist. And also the people pleaser, like the Sunny, I'll do anything to make everybody else happy, and I also want to look perfect. And divorce, marital liberation, was like
ultimate failure.
Just like totally cracked the whole facade of my identity. So I was like, oh my gosh, I have no effing clue who I am. And I remember looking in the mirror and being like, who are you? Who are you, Kai?
But that's the great discovery, because in like any healthy relationship, when that is answered, when you get to know that person and you get to choose the qualities, not because they please somebody else, but because they feel good, and you get to make the choices in life that are aligned instead of what others would choose for you, then there is this liberation and authentic power, authentic happiness. Then we take that into relationship. Then we take that into being a daughter or a son. We take that into being a sibling. We take that into being a leader or a partner. And we're bringing the better version of ourselves, where we are like more shiny and authentic, because we're not selling ourselves or bartering in ways that are so costly that we're going to create and attract a vibrational match of drama and chaos, because we really don't feel that worthiness.
Well, and that's why self-trust is so important. Like, for that joy that you're describing, is if you don't trust yourself and you don't have that access to your power and your authenticity, it becomes very hard to express. Like, you just kind of revert back into those old compensatory strategies and coping strategies that you learned in early childhood, when you aren't connected to that power source, when you aren't in alignment with that deep inner knowing. You do create chaos and drama, because you're trying to control utilizing those toxic strategies that aren't working. So
they're not working for a reason. They're trying to evolve.
Yes, hey, it's time to grow up.
So I hear like that when what I look at is, like you said earlier, it's about everybody else. When I start fussing and trying to look at, what are they doing and why are they doing that and what's going on, I realize that I am not in my center right now. I'm making my life, if they don't respond to me, I guess I'm not lovable. If they leave me, I guess I'm unworthy and nobody loves me. And it's coming into this place of understanding like my value and my worth, regardless, outside of other people's opinions and behaviors and choices. So what is that? So we've talked a little bit about how it's unhealthy in relationship dynamics, in an intimate place. What does that look like in as a son or a daughter. You know, where codependency can continue well into adulthood, where it's like, okay, it's one thing when you're 9 and dependent on your parents, of course, but
Yes,
when you're like, 35 and 52 and or even 22, and how do you think that codependent looks like when you're still sourcing parents for whatever?
For whatever.
All of it.
Yeah.
Money, validation, respect, acknowledgement.
Yeah, and how this shows up, at least in my experience or in a lot of my clients, is not giving ourselves permission to actually grow beyond where we want to go, because we don't want to rock the family system, and we don't want to challenge anybody else, so we stay small. And that's actually a big one.
Yeah.
And you, like you mentioned, the financial support, we kind of hook in, and those are those unconscious hooks that keep us small, because then we feel obligated to compromise our truth to meet their needs, to live up to their expectations, because they're doing this for me, so I need to. And it kind of creates this very codependent and sometimes toxic dynamic.
Right.
And there's a difference between support and
Absolutely.
with family.
Right.
But you have to be very aware of those strings that are attached to it. That was a big one for me. I relied on some of my family members for financial support for a couple years, and I remember waking up one day and being like, okay, I feel so much attachment to needing to be who they want me to be that I can't actually be free.
Because that's the prostitute archetype,
right?
In essence, where I've bartered, I've sold myself to get the money.
Yes,
I have to be this way.
Yeah, I have to show up here. I have to do this. I can't talk. Like, it was just like all of these limitations around how I could show up, like the edge. And in a way, I probably wanted to create more of that, because I was like,
I don't want to grow up.
I don't want to grow up.
Yeah.
I'm just going to stay really comfortable and safe in this familiar. And I think I have so much compassion for people in their family systems, because I really do, because it is the ultimate, one of the ultimate classrooms on our planet but this is where our attachment systems are born, is with your mother, your father, like, and your siblings. And so stepping outside of some of these patterns that have been so deeply ingrained, it can bring up a lot of emotions, a lot of grief, a lot of anger, a lot of just all of it, because we're re-examining this very core relationship,
right?
And it's necessary.
That's that individuation that we were talking about earlier, that says, I'm not limited by my parents' wealth or belief system or values. I can have I can make my own money, I can have my own path, I can have my own values. And I find that with my clients and at different times supporting families through navigating codependencies with their kids, I notice how the parents are hooked in with controlling and manipulating their children to keep them small, because it means I have value and worth when you still need me. And actually sometimes I see a lot of manipulation coming from parents to kind of keep them codependent, because who am I outside of this relationship if my children that are grown adults, they're 35 or 21 or whatever it is, or 52, because parents aren't individuating from their role and allowing children to become adults and make their own decisions. Because out of love, I think there's this, I have to keep them from pain, and I have to direct them, but a parent only knows the answers that are inside their box, which is a very small box for the next generation to move within, especially if we're evolving. Then we're meant to evolve past our parents, and that means that's going to shatter that. But if I've always gone to them for advice, what happens when I don't take their advice anymore, or I do something that is way outside of their comfort zone? Can they withdraw love? Can they withdraw support? 100%. People that move outside of religious systems within the family, or move into a different career path that the family doesn't agree upon, can lose that foundational support, love, finances, and so that's another way of breaking that codependent pattern.
Yeah, that's yes. Yes to all of that. And some parents derive a lot of their worth from how their children are showing up in the world. And so it can be very challenging when their child starts to challenge the status quo and starts to move outside of this identity that the family system has created, even in their relationships and their society and their little bubble. So it's like, if you're showing up this way, this is a reflection of me.
Right.
So you need to
heavy guilt.
You need to stop doing that immediately.
Right.
Like, get in check. Like,
right. And there's a lot of that, and it takes courage to be like, I'm not your pawn.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to go on my path.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I don't love you. I appreciate
Right.
that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I hear in the languaging of a lot of clients who are like, oh, my mom wouldn't like that. You're like, you're 38, you know, or you're 52.
Right.
Like, your mommy wouldn't like that choice. Okay, time to maybe check to see what are your values outside of your mother or father or, you know, opinions. So what are some, you know, tactics and strategies to individuate as adults from parents, to individuate even inside of a relationship, because we're not saying, hey, we don't need anybody, or we don't support anybody. We want to find those healthy supportive dynamics that allow sovereignty and individuality and within a healthy relationship, whether that's within family, you know, friendship circle. So what are some ideas or strategies that you could recommend to people to really help with that?
Yeah, for me, and the work I do with a lot of my clients has to do around boundaries. Is really getting clear around your boundary system. How does it express itself currently? Are you more porous, where you're taking on everybody else's emotions and you feel responsible and you feel like either energetically drained or kind of disconnected from your center because you're taking on so much of your external environment that you really are off there. To rigid, like, is there a lot of walls? Am I really shut down? Am I guarded? Am I not actually allowing other people in to see? Or is it more healthy? And there's a little bit of both of like, I'm connected to myself and I feel safe enough to be in relationship with others because I know who I am. I have my needs. I'm able to build a bridge between what's happening internally, externally with other people in my life so that they can have a good understanding of my own internal experience. That does not happen until you take radical self-responsibility for yourself and your needs and your emotions. Like, blank. If you're not willing to do that, it's very hard to individuate because you're stuck in the victim blame shame game.
And not evolving or growing.
Yeah, not evolving or growing. And so boundaries, emotional intimacy, reparenting, these are kind of the building blocks. Connect to your body. Get in your body. Start to notice how you're feeling in your body. Like, where am I feeling this? What are the emotions that are coming up for me? Get curious about those triggers. Name the narrative that's showing up for you. And then choose. What do I want to do with this information? Do I need to reparent this part for myself? Do I need to self-soothe? Or do I need to have a conversation? Do I need to set a boundary? Because boundaries are the high quality information we give to other people to teach us to teach them how we want to be treated. That is our responsibility. So if somebody's walking all over your lawn and they're just like leaving their dirty shoes at your front door, it's like, well, we can scream and yell and get resentful all we want, but it's your house. You're the one that's allowing it. So take responsibility for that and then gain the communication strategies, because you can do that in a kind and clear way. It doesn't always have to be like, I'm dropping everybody, I'm cutting all these people out of my life, because that's not necessarily supportive or mature. That's more of a just probably...
Because we're learning how to treat each other, which means if we've been in this pattern, there's going to be the habit of this is the way we've always done this. That doesn't mean it's healthy, and so somebody in the dynamic is going to break the pattern. You know, and so being that first one to break the pattern, we get the opportunity to consciously communicate, hey, I've noticed that we're in this downward pattern or an unconscious, you know, dynamic. I'm going to shift this. That doesn't mean they're going to change a damn thing. But you're shifting the dynamic, and then they can get mad, or they can be like, oh, okay, I see, I'm understanding. Or they can have their tantrum, and then we get to practice, you know, compassion again. So one of the things is like, what I'm hearing is this like self-care and individuation, you know, is this process of really inward listening. And it feels like to kind of check codependency requires healthy self-reflection time away from all of the roles and the loud voices of everybody's demands on our emotional energy, our time, and our attention, to be like, hey, let me get clear so that I can clearly communicate what's a yes and what's a no in all of those relationships, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and so self-identity, self-clear. Anything else that you'd love to
add?
Yeah, about like tips or red flags or things to really help people with healthier relationships in that way?
I mean, honest communication is always primary. Like, if you are willing to put your truth ahead of everything else, then at least you're creating that authentic, transparent, and very mature relational dynamic where it's built on integrity. Yeah. And so there can be a level of trust and emotional safety so that we can actually go deeper. And I loved your example there of really communicating of like, hey, I've noticed we're in this pattern and this isn't working anymore for me. And I'm choosing to consciously step out. And I know that might be hard to hear, but like, I just need you to know that I'm no longer going to play a part. And I love that, because it takes two people or multiple to be in a dance together in that pattern. And and this is why I love it, because the empowerment is you have a choice, right? And you can choose to step out of that dance.
Right? You're inviting the whole thing to rise up. And it also sounds like there's permission to grow for self. That I don't have to stay in this pattern. Whether the other person stays in this pattern is their option. But it sounds like part of this is giving permission to change a pattern, to grow, to shine, to be happy, to be free, to follow my truth, and that in that process, being able to hold the space for other people not agreeing with that choice.
And that's emotional maturity.
Right, which doesn't mean that I don't care about you, but I'm all, just to be compassionate with somebody that's been in those dynamics with you, and you're deciding to grow, how that might threaten their safety, their orientation to self, and have compassion to that, and the invitation to rise with, instead of, I'm going to play small to appease that and accommodate my truth, my light, my joy, my happiness, and basically my life. Like, it's too costly, people. You and I have both put that on the chopping block over and over and over again, and continue over and over to reclaim that again and again, of like, oh, put it up there again. Oh, put it up there again. Or I'm on a bigger stage now, or it's a bigger dynamic now, and I need to individuate even more, or I need to claim my light even more, and that's going to threaten the systems yet again and again and again. Every time we push a boundary, every time we grow, all of the systems and the soil that held us tight in that place, it's like this container isn't big enough. Right. And people can have their stories about that, just as you and I have felt threatened when other people have left, or they've unchosen an unhealthy dynamic with us. We have the option of taking it personally and feeling abandoned, or rewrite that story that says, oh, I give permission not only for me to grow, but I also give permission for the other to grow. I also give permission for them to stagnate. If they choose that. I give them permission to throw a tantrum and for me not to get hooked into it. And that doesn't mean I don't love them, but that is healthy individuation in relationship. What?
Like, step out. Step out. And you're right. It's you can still love from afar. And I don't mean that, but like distance-wise. But you don't have to be in the dynamic. You don't have to be in the pattern. Right. And you are the most powerful person when you are putting your soul's truth in alignment over the needs, roles, expectations of everybody else.
Right, and
but that serves everybody.
Traditionally, that would be judged as selfish. And so we're rewriting that now as self-affirming, and this is healthy individuation. It also gives permission to other people to rise out of playing small, sedating dynamics, codependent, patterns. And so it also gives permission. And always the first person that steps out of the dynamics, going to be the one that people throw stones at.
Absolutely.
And it takes a while for us to be like able to say, hey, thanks for leading, thanks for showing the way. And it's not always easy, however, it feels so good to get out of the shackles of, those patterns.
Yeah.
So we can bring a fuller aspect to our relationships. And then the patterns in the relationship, the dynamics are a lot more expansive, a lot more supportive, juicy, beautiful, celebratory. Real, right? Where both people are, have permission to shine and grow and wobble and go through their, cycles.
Yeah.
And I noticed with it also works with teachers as well. And I noticed like with teacher-student dynamics is that a lot of times a teacher will, a good teacher will be like, yes, I want you to grow now, get out of the nest.
Right.
And a codependent teacher will be like, I want you to stay small because if you graduate, then who am I going to be teaching?
Yeah, exactly. That's that fear-based.
Fear-based or lack.
Yeah, lack, for sure. And that's why it takes so much courage to be that person that is that leader in that way, not only of changing the patterns of the dynamics, but also inviting that for everybody else and being like, hey, I know I'm stepping out, but this is a major invitation for everyone around. And to be okay if people don't come, if they stagnate, and that's okay.
Because then we're not in a codependent pattern of I'm trying to control and wake you up in a way that doesn't always feel good to be on the receiving end of that pressure or judgment.
Right.
I realize that I put myself in codependent dynamics by assigning myself to be the steward of your path without you.
So nice.
I know, isn't that sweet? Like, oh, Dad, I've decided I'm your nutritionist. And he's like, yeah, but I didn't.
So
no, thank you.
Yeah, I'm good.
Get your hands off all of my food and get your judgment out of here. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, but I love you. Yeah. And so I think part of that codependency is also our intentions. Kai can be so in the right place.
Yeah.
But the expression of it can be from a very unhealthy, unconscious place, and it can leave debris in the field without knowing it. Yeah. Parents really want to support their kids. They don't want them to be in pain. They want to come forward with financial support or whatever. They and yet don't realize that that I might be creating some codependency here, that they're not able to stand on their own 2 feet. And a lot of times we don't know we're doing this.
Right.
So that's why we're having this conversation, is to kind of bring light to some of these things.
Yeah, and I appreciate that you're bringing that forward. Usually comes from a very loving, protective, I care about you space. But I too, especially in relationship, at least now as I'm growing through, all the patterns that come up in relationship, whether that be codependency or noticing the blind spots of where certain parts still want to hook in and create that dynamic. But unconditional love, true, deep love is, I respect your soul's journey. I love you no matter what, your soul needs to do. That is true freedom for me. Right. It's not so much I need to control you in order to keep this safe and to make sure that you're here.
Especially if I have an abandonment issue, I'm going to want to control rather than saying, if your soul, on your soul's path, if you need to go that way, go that way. Because your soul's path really isn't, about me. And I think so much of the stories we say, it's about you. You left. It's because you were moving towards your passion. Yeah. Because this dynamic outgrew itself. Yeah. It's not an abandonment, it's evolution. Yeah. And
that's a huge reframe for a lot of people, though.
Yeah. It's just look at it from the bigger perspective of that, wow, staying in this dynamic might actually trap us both more because we've learned and exchanged the lessons we've already needed to go. And now by holding on to this super tight, we're actually really in a hurting dynamic instead of acknowledging, wow, it's time to evolve this. And that this allows a conscious transition, whether that's kids growing out of the nest, whether that's in a healthy relationship that, oh, this person's growing, that person's growing, they need to expand, and to not feel threatened by someone else's growth. Right. And that's the ultimate test of respect for somebody else, is to not hook in. It says, you can't grow because that threatens me. Now I'm in that place that is not really in a loving dynamic with you.
That's the ultimate.
Yeah, right?
That's the journey.
And it will be tested.
And it will be tested. Yes, it will.
Like, do we really love our siblings enough and ourselves enough to allow them to make choices that we don't necessarily love, like, or understand?
Yep.
But their right to choose it, or our parents, or our partner. So, this is it. So juicy, so delicious. I love it. And I appreciate your honesty and authenticity about the traps and the cycles, the spin cycles, but also where there's just liberation, because when you're bright, when you're authentic, your power in relationship then is really the juice to really help inspire, uplift, and be loving to friends, family, clients, partners. Like, that's, I think the vibrations of real love get to be experienced in that place. We're just like, there's not as much chaos. It's good.
It's clean.
It's clean.
And it's truthful.
Yeah.
Again, but it's adulting in relationship. It truly is. It's like, I am good on my own. Yes, I love you. Yes, I need, and that's okay. But I also, if you need to do this or you need to go that way, I fully respect that. And I'm okay because I want the best for you.
Right. And that, I think that healthy sovereignty is, we were hiking, beautiful hike yesterday. We had the best chillax day. Going for a hike and then spa and all of that. Anyway, side point. But those big old trees had many roots. And, really deeply, I have people, I have habits, I have a lifestyle, I have environments that support me. So if somebody important in my life that I'm in relationship in whatever way goes, whether that's a death or whether that's the relationship evolved or they moved away or I don't work for that company anymore, or whatever it is, I'm still okay because I have other forms of stability, and the tree's trunk, I know who I am. I'm in this forest of trees and I can stand on my own, so that when the wind blows and there's a challenge in my life, my roots are so deep and I know who I am that it doesn't blow me over.
Yeah.
And I also am not alone. There's a forest here. We're here to remind each other how to stand. We're here to support each other's roots underneath, but we still need to grow those roots ourselves.
Yes. I thank you for bringing that up. That's actually probably one of the most important elements of being able to climb out of codependency. Is creating other networks outside of these relationships. Friendships, sisterhood, brotherhood,
community,
whatever it is. Have things outside of your relationship that can be supportive, where you're not losing your whole life because it was only in one thing.
Right. Really healthy. Really
so healthy.
Love many.
Yeah.
Have many sources for those connections, and I think that's really, really good. So fantastic. We could go on forever, and we'll do this more. Kai, I really respect your radiance and your truth, your authenticity. You're really able to be transparent about struggle, about how to really be authentic and to find your power back again, because you've been through this cycle and continue to go and grow and learn, and you're really just a beautiful role model for that, and so grateful to spend some time with us today.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Really, really, I appreciate that, and the permission to keep going through this cycle.
Yeah.
Of
I'm not done.
Growing and learning. You never get, I don't know, do you ever get to the top and be like,
the trees keep growing, they keep reaching, they keep broadening, and so we're just going to keep growing. And being there for each other. I think that's the thing is that we don't have to do this alone. Having support, other trees in the forest, those that have done this, that are bigger than us, that have deeper root systems. Like, hey, how did you do this?
Right.
How did you navigate that forest fire? How did you navigate that flood of how did you find your strength? And that's where we're here for each other. And we're here for those listening and watching, so that you know that you're not alone if you need some support through the process of finding yourself, if you've lost yourself in a job, in an addiction, in a relationship, that there is a pathway out, and we've both navigated that, and we continue to navigate. There's always more to learn. So Sister, where can people find you? Because, you know, we're going to give everybody your Instagram and all of that so people can follow your fabulous face and wisdom.
Amazing. The best place to find me and connect is at www.kyliemcbeath.com. If you're interested for daily wisdom, I post pretty daily. I'm re-examining my relationship with Instagram, but at Being is Beautiful. So if you're ready to take that journey back home to yourself, you can find me there.
Yes, and you have a free gift for our audience.
Oh yes, today. Yes. My free gift for anyone listening is a 31-day Journey Home journaling guide. So it asks prompts and questions to support you in really reacquainting with yourself, your inner child, your core desires, and the things that make you you.
Yes, oh my gosh, so get on that. We will make sure to have that link to Kylie's website in there and that free gift. So you definitely are going to want to get that gift. Like, I'm getting that gift. I don't have that gift yet, so I want that gift.
Get up on it.
You know, we need that self-inquiry. And,
Yes.
and to have a process for that is fantastic. It's a wonderful free gift.
Thank you.
I would also like to offer to the audience a free guided tree wisdom, which is about standing in your truth and being in your power. And so that's a free guided visualization. And also, because we have our upcoming Empowerment and Awakening weekend, which is in October, the 3rd through the 6th, in Sedona, we actually do a whole course on conscious relationships and a whole course on clear boundaries.
Oh, amazing.
So, and healthy masculine
Boundaries.
and feminine balance, so that you can learn how to stand in your truth. And so we do like a whole 3.5 days packed with tons of content. And so we're going to give $150 off. Register soon because it's already filling fast. So that's a reminder, we want to give you that. And I just want to do I have a little conscious relationships course with some great tips on, like how to be healthy in relationships and conscious tips for that. And so we're going to give 25% off of that course, which is just, some videos and exercises. And we really just want you to have the support. We had been there in the process and felt alone and overwhelmed and ill-equipped.
You seek support. That
Seek
is my
support.
number one. Like, truly, you do not have to do alone. Nor I don't think we are supposed to do it alone in this process, because we do have blind spots, and we need that healthy modeling of secure attachment, of acceptance, of, hey, you're good, I got you, and you can move through this. And having that external support allows us to move much more smoothly through this individuation process, or at least as I've found.
Tools, and some tools and permission to be like, it's okay to say no.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know that as a chronic accommodator.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know that it's okay for me to say no. I can say yes to myself, and had to, just that whole process. I worked it out on my own, and I want to, we both want to help people through that.
Yeah.
So we are here for you.
Yes.
And I'm so excited to continue this sisterhood. And this is the beginning of lots of Kai and Anahata.
Woo!
Yeah.
Get ready.
We're going to keep co-creating more, and possibly retreats together. And
lots of
this
goodness.
is just the beginning. So I'm so grateful for you and what you're bringing to this planet. Your light, it's so radiant, and the power of everything that you've gone through, and your radically honest and beautiful sharing is so inspiring. So
Thank you so much.
thanks for being on the show.
Such an honor.
Yes,
Love
yes, yes. Let's keep playing and shining
Yes.
together. So check out the show notes, and please, as always, subscribe, because these conversations and other amazing conversations are always happening on the Shamangelic Healing Podcast. If there was something valuable that you really found that landed for you, then like it, share it with somebody that you think is going through something that this conversation could really help them through. Please tag a friend. It really helps us get the word out to other people that are going through this. So share, like, subscribe, give us a rave review, give your sister a rave review. And thank you, as always. We appreciate your time. So go forth, and really we bless and wish there's more smoothness, ease, and grace in your relationship with yourself and your relationship with everyone around you. Blessings and peace out. Love you.